Before anything is understood, let the body arrive, not as preparation, not as technique, but as acknowledgement. You are already here. Breathing is happening. Sensation is present without invitation. There is nothing to earn entry into this moment. And yet, something often feels slightly off. Not dramatically wrong, just subtly unsettled. You may notice a quiet sense of delay in your life, as if what you are reaching for is always one step ahead of where you stand. You do the inner work, you adjust your thinking, you visualize, and still effort hums beneath the surface. This hum is not failure. It is information. It tells you that attention has been trained to reach rather than to rest. And what you reach for, you reinforce as distant. Most people believe manifestation is slowed by doubt, fear, or inconsistency. But those are surface symptoms. The deeper issue is where attention has learned to live. Attention has become restless. It moves quickly toward outcomes, explanations, improvements. It scans the inner world the way the eyes scan a horizon, always checking whether something is missing. This habit feels responsible, even spiritual, but it quietly fractures coherence, because attention cannot accelerate creation while it is continuously relocating itself into the future. To understand how attention truly works, we must step beneath motivation, beneath belief, beneath desire, and observe attention as a physiological and spiritual faculty. Attention is not willpower. It is not concentration. It is not force. Attention is placement. Where attention rests repeatedly, identity begins to form. And where identity stabilizes, experience organizes itself accordingly. This is the governing principle you were rarely taught to respect. You were taught to use attention, but not to exercise it. To exercise attention does not mean to tighten it. It means to make it reliable. Reliable attention does not jump when sensation shifts. It does not abandon the present to negotiate with the future. It does not collapse inward at the first sign of discomfort. It stays. Scripture hints at this quietly when it speaks of faith not as belief, but as abiding. Abide in me, not imagine harder, not convince yourself. Abide. Abiding is an attentional discipline, not an emotional one. The modern mind confuses intensity with effectiveness, but intensity destabilizes attention. It exhausts the nervous system and teaches awareness that creation requires strain. Strain slows manifestation because the system cannot move smoothly while it is braced. To manifest faster, attention must become calm enough to be consistent. This is not patience as endurance. It is patience as alignment. Notice how attention behaves in ordinary moments. You check your phone without fully arriving in the room. You listen while preparing your response. These are not flaws. They are training patterns. Attention learns what you practice daily, and most lives practice fragmentation. The nervous system adapts accordingly, always half present, half reaching. Manifestation does not respond to what you want. It responds to what attention inhabits. This is why affirmations repeated with tension often fail. They train attention to associate desire with effort, and effort implies lack. Lack is not a thought. It is a posture. To exercise attention is to retrain posture, the inner stance from which you meet reality. This begins not with desire, but with stillness. Stillness is not inactivity. It is non-interference. When attention stops interfering with experience, it begins to perceive more accurately. An accurate perception reorganizes behavior, timing, and response without conscious effort. This is the hidden speed of alignment. Think of attention like gravity rather than force. It does not push. It gathers. What you repeatedly give your attention to without argument begins to feel normal. What feels normal becomes believable. What becomes believable begins to express. Manifestation accelerates when attention is no longer divided between what is and what should be. Division slows coherence. You do not need stronger desire. You need quieter attention. Quieter does not mean dull. It means settled. A person reads a message and does not immediately interpret its meaning. A decision is allowed to sit overnight without mental rehearsal. These are small acts of attentional strength. Strength is not tightening. Strength is staying. The Christ-centered mystery here is subtle but precise. Creation flows through awareness that is unified, not awareness that is strained. Christ speaks with authority not because he focuses harder, but because he is not divided within himself. I do nothing of myself. This is not passivity. It is alignment so complete that action flows without resistance. Neville Goddard pointed to the same law when he spoke of assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, but the feeling was never emotional excitement. It was naturalness. Naturalness is attention at rest. When something feels natural, attention does not monitor it. It lives there. To exercise attention is to learn how to live somewhere internally without checking whether it is working. This is why manifestation speeds up when you stop watching the clock. Time responds to coherence, not urgency. Urgency fractures attention. It pulls awareness into anticipation. Anticipation removes it from embodiment. Embodiment is where creation stabilizes. Notice how the body responds when attention stops trying to get somewhere. Breath deepens, muscles soften, thoughts slow their pace. This physiological shift is not relaxation for comfort. It is readiness for coherence. The nervous system cannot host sustained creation while it is in surveillance mode. Surveillance assumes danger or lack. Creation assumes order. To exercise attention, you begin by noticing when attention leaves the present moment unnecessarily. Not to judge it, to see it. Seeing is enough. When attention is seen leaving, it often returns on its own. This is the discipline Christ referred to as watchfulness. Not vigilance against sin, but awareness of where consciousness is resting. You do not force attention back, you allow it to realize it wandered. This allowance trains gentleness. Gentleness stabilizes attention faster than force ever could. Force teaches attention that it must be controlled. Gentleness teaches it that it is safe to stay. Safety is essential for manifestation. Not emotional safety alone, but existential safety. The sense that being here is enough. When attention feels safe, it stops fidgeting. And when attention stops fidgeting, it gathers power naturally. Power here is not voltage. It is density. Dense attention does not scatter. It permeates. This is why a calm person often influences a room more than an intense one. Influence is a byproduct of coherence. So how do you exercise attention daily? Without turning it into another task, you stop asking attention to achieve. You ask it to remain. Remain with a sensation witut naming it. Remain with a desire without chasing it. These moments build attentional endurance. Endurance is the true accelerator. Most people can focus intensely for short periods. Few can rest attentively for long ones. Manifestation follows the latter. The world reshapes itself around what remains stable. Attention that jumps constantly creates unstable impressions. Unstable impressions delay form. This is not punishment. It is mechanics. The law is neutral and precise. Christ's miracles were not interruptions of law. They were expressions of it from a unified center. According to your faith be it unto you. Faith here is not belief in possibility. It is loyalty of attention. Where attention abides, faith is active. To exercise attention is to choose where you dwell inwardly and to remain there gently without checking for results. Results arrive fastest when attention is no longer measuring itself. Measurement implies doubt. Doubt fractures attention. It asks, is this enough? Enoughness cannot be proven to attention. It must be felt, and it is felt only when attention stops negotiating. This is why silence is a powerful training ground. Not silence as absence of sound, but silence as absence of commentary. You sit, you breathe, you notice without naming. This is not meditation for peace. It is meditation for stability. Stability accelerates manifestation because it allows impressions to sink deeper. Surface impressions fade. Deep impressions reorganize life. Your task is not to impress the subconscious with force, but to stop disturbing it with inconsistency. Attention that remains allows impressions to root. A thought held lightly but consistently outperforms a thought held intensely but briefly. Consistency is the hidden multiplier. This is why many experience sudden shifts after long periods of quiet alignment. Nothing suddenly happened. Stability simply reached critical mass. You do not rush growth underground. You stop digging it up to check. Attention exercised correctly feels almost boring to the impatient mind. That boredom is the mind losing its addiction to stimulation. Beyond it lies coherence, and coherence moves faster than effort ever could. As attention stabilizes, you may notice desire changing texture, less craving, more clarity. You want without leaning forward. This is the signature of effective attention. When desire no longer pulls attention away from presence, it becomes creative rather than consumptive. Creation happens from fullness, not hunger. This is the psychological wisdom embedded in Christ's words. Seek first the kingdom. Not seek outcomes, not seek improvement, seek alignment. The kingdom is not a place. It is an orientation of attention. And when attention is rightly oriented, everything else is added, not by effort, but by order. You do not chase manifestation. You host it. Hosting requires space. Space comes from still attention. To exercise attention daily, practice letting moments be sufficient. Drink water without distraction. Listen without anticipating response. These are not trivial acts. They are attentional weightlifting. Each time attention stays where it is, it grows stronger. Strong attention does not strain. It stabilizes, and stability shortens the distance between assumption and expression, not because time collapses, but because resistance dissolves. Resistance is delay. Coherence is speed. This is the speed Neville hinted at when he spoke of living from the end. The end was never a future scene. It was a settled state. Settled attention lives as if something is already true, because it is no longer checking. Checking is disbelief in motion. When checking stops, belief becomes embodied. Embodied belief manifests. So do not try to manifest faster. By adding techniques, remove interference. Let attention rest long enough to trust itself. This trust is not optimism. It is familiarity. Attention becomes familiar with stillness, familiar with sufficiency, familiar with presence. From familiarity comes naturalness. From naturalness comes speed, not hurried speed, effortless speed, the kind where things align without announcement. And one day you notice that what you once tried to manifest has been living with you quietly because attention finally made room for it. There is nothing dramatic in this realization, only gratitude without excitement, because the system recognizes this is how it was always meant to work. Let the word slow now. Let attention feel itself resting. No technique is needed from here, just fidelity. Stay where you are. Return when you wander. Rest without measuring. Manifestation will not lag behind this. It will follow naturally, faithfully, as it always has, when attention is finally exercised, not as force, but as home. Let this settle now without seeking a conclusion. Speed has already been redefined. What accelerates life is not urgency, but continuity. Not intensity, but residence. Attention that knows where it lives does not rush to arrive anywhere else. You may feel a subtle disappointment here, the disappointment of the mind that expected fireworks, a sudden surge, a dramatic confirmation. Let that disappointment pass untouched. What is forming is quieter than spectacle and far more reliable. When attention stabilizes, life stops needing to convince you. Proof becomes unnecessary because coherence is already felt. This is why the deepest changes often feel almost anticlimactic. Nothing announces itself. Nothing insists on recognition. Things simply begin to work. You respond differently before you realize you have changed. You choose differently before you analyze why. Circumstances shift without the emotional charge that once accompanied every hope. This is manifestation without strain. Not faster because time has bent, but faster because resistance is absent. Resistance always consumed the most energy. The mind used to run ahead, checking outcomes, calculating timelines, monitoring progress. Now it rests closer to the body, closer to breath, closer to sensation. Attention returns to the present, not because it is disciplined, but because it has learned there is nothing more powerful elsewhere. From here, faith is no longer an act of will. It is a posture. You trust not because you decided to, but because attention has nowhere else to go. That feels more true. This is the faith Christ lived from. Not belief that something would happen, but certainty rooted in alignment. I am with you always. This was not reassurance for fear. It was a statement of location. Always here, always now, always present. When attention shares this location, manifestation stops feeling like magic and starts feeling like consequence, quiet consequence, faithful consequence. The nervous system no longer waits for permission to relax. It senses that nothing essential is being missed. And from that safety, action becomes precise. You speak when needed. You move when moved. You wait without tension. Waiting no longer feels like delay. It feels like participation. Participation in intelligence that does not need to be managed. This is the discipline you were never taught. Not discipline of control, but discipline of return. Return again and again to where attention is whole. Not perfectly, gently. Each return strengthens the habit of coherence. And coherence compounds. You will not notice it building. You will notice its absence. When things begin to feel simpler, less explanation, less rehearsal, less effort, more rightness. This rightness is not moral. It is mechanical. It is the natural outcome of attention no longer splitting itself. So let this be the final movement. Not instruction, but permission. Permission to stop pushing attention forward. Permission to stop using desire as a lever. Permission to rest where you are without asking whether it is enough. Enoughness reveals itself only when questioned, no longer. From this place, manifestation does not need to be chased. It keeps pace with you naturally because attention is no longer running ahead of itself. Let the breath move. Let the body adjust. Let thought rise and fall. Stay with what stays. That is the exercise. That is the acceleration. That is the law fulfilled quietly. Nothing more is required. Remain. Remain without trying to remain. Even that effort can soften now. There's a point where attention no longer feels like something you are directing and begins to feel like something that is simply present, not owned, not managed, present in the same way light is present in a room, not trying to illuminate, just being what it is. This is where the exercise completes itself. Nothing new is added here. Something unnecessary falls away. The mind no longer asks how to hold this state because it recognizes there is no state to hold. There is only a relationship that has quietly corrected itself. Attention has stopped treating the future as a destination and the present as a means. Now both exist in the same field, without hierarchy, without strain. You are not practicing manifestation anymore. You are practicing residence. Residence in awareness. Residence in sufficiency. Residence in a nervous system that no longer needs to rush ahead to guarantee its own safety. From this residence, life unfolds at the only speed that is ever real, the speed of coherence. Events line up without pressure. Decisions clarify without force. Opportunities appear without needing to be hunted, not because you earned them, but because attention is no longer interrupting their formation. There is a humility in this realization, a quiet bowing of effort, a release of the need to be impressive to reality. Reality was never impressed by striving. It responded only to alignment, and alignment is what remains when attention learns how to stay. You may notice in the days that follow that you forget these words. That is not a loss. What matters is not memory, but pattern. Attention has been shown a different way to live. It will return there naturally, the same way a body returns to balance. After learning where center is, when you notice yourself rushing, do not correct. Pause. When you notice yourself checking outcomes, do not argue. Return. Return is the only movement required. Everything else reorganizes around it. This is how attention becomes trustworthy. Not because it never wanders, but because it always knows how to come home. And when attention is at home, manifestation does not need to be accelerated. It is already underway, quietly, faithfully, without resistance. Let this be enough for now, not as a conclusion, but as a settling. The breath continues. Life continues. Awareness remains. Nothing essential is missing. Nothing is late. Attention rests where it belongs. And from that rest, everything moves in its proper time. Let the pace slow even further now, as if the words themselves are learning how to rest. There is nothing more to understand. Understanding has already given way to recognition. Attention no longer needs to be guided. It has felt what stability is like in the body, what coherence feels like in the breath, what quiet confidence feels like without explanation. This is how training completes itself, not with mastery, but with familiarity. You become familiar with being here. Without narrating it, from this familiarity, life no longer feels like something you must catch up to. Moments arrive whole. Experiences unfold without demanding interpretation. You are present enough to respond and relaxed enough not to interfere. That balance is rare, only because it is simple. The mind once believed that speed came from effort, that progress came from pressure, that manifestation required constant attention directed forward. Now attention has learned a different rhythm. It knows how to stay. It knows how to soften. It knows how to trust the intelligence that moves through it without being commanded. This trust is not blind. It is embodied. It lives in the way the shoulders no longer lift unnecessarily, in the way the breath does not shorten at uncertainty, in the way silence no longer feels empty. Silence feels full now, not full of answers, full of presence. And presence is what reality responds to most faithfully. There is no urgency left in this space, only clarity. Clarity does not rush. It does not persuade. It does not perform. It simply sees. From seeing, right action arises. From right action, alignment deepens. From alignment, outcomes form in their own time, without resistance. This is manifestation at its most natural, unimpressive, undramatic, inevitably. You are no longer asking attention to work harder. You are allowing it to work correctly. And correct function always feels like ease. As this settles, let the day continue without carrying these words forward. They have already done their work. What remains cannot be forgotten, because it is not information. It is orientation. Orientation toward presence. Orientation toward sufficiency. Orientation toward a life that does not need to be forced in order to unfold. When attention rests here, faith is no longer something you practice. It is something you stand on, quietly, naturally, without effort. Let this be the end without an ending, a pause rather than a conclusion. The breath moves, awareness remains, life continues, and attention, exercise not as strain, but as home, rests exactly where manifestation has always begun. Let the words thin now, as if they are stepping aside, to make room for what does not speak. There is nothing left to lean toward, nothing left to confirm. Attention has already found its seat. Notice how effort does not rush back in when nothing is demanded of it. It waits, unneeded, unemployed. This is not emptiness. It is readiness without tension. You are no longer preparing for life. You are meeting it where it arrives. Here, the future is not imagined ahead of you. It is felt as a quiet extension of the present, not separate, not urgent, not heavy. The past, too, loosens its grip, not erased, but no longer consulted for permission to be here. Memory becomes information rather than identity. Hope becomes direction rather than pressure. Attention stands in the middle, unpulled. This is the balance that allows things to happen without being chased. From this balance, manifestation does not announce itself. It simply shows up as the next natural step. A conversation unfolds more easily. A solution appears without strain. A door opens without being forced. Nothing mystical, nothing dramatic. Just alignment expressing itself as timing. And timing no longer feels like delay. When you are not standing outside of it, you are inside the moment now, not managing it, not measuring it, living it. This is why the mind grows quieter here. It has nothing left to solve. And the body softens because it is no longer bracing for what might be missing. Nothing is missing, not because everything is perfect, but because wholeness does not depend on conditions. Wholeness is the condition. Let this be the final understanding without being named. Attention does not need to be driven toward manifestation. Manifestation moves toward stable attention. Stability invites. Rest receives. You have not learned a technique. You have remembered a posture, and this posture carries forward on its own. So allow the sound to fade. Allow the space after it to remain. Do not try to keep anything. What matters stays without effort. Breath continues. Awareness remains. Life moves at the speed it always required. Nothing more needs to be done. Attention is home. Let this be the final softening, where even the idea of continuation dissolves. There is a quiet dignity in stopping, not stopping the breath, not stopping thought, but stopping the need to arrive somewhere else. Attention has already arrived. What remains now is not instruction, but allowance. Allowance for life to move as it does, without being followed, corrected, or hurried along. You may notice that nothing dramatic fills this space. No revelation, no surge of certainty, just a calm familiarity, as if you have been here before and somehow forgot. That forgetting was never a mistake. It was part of learning how much strain you were carrying without realizing it. Now the strain has loosened enough for something simpler to take its place. Presence without self-consciousness, awareness without agenda, being without commentary. This is not the end of practice. It is the end of effort pretending to be practice. From here, attention will move when it needs to and rest when it does not.